on what you're passionate about at the Transformation Network.
Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larson, a high-performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Frequency Show. I am so glad that you are here with me today because this episode is one that I would say has been a long time coming. And I think if you're somebody who's been following along with me with the show over the last year or so, that you're going to feel that. Before I get into what we're talking about here today, I want to take just a moment and invite you to arrive. If you're driving, if you're walking, if you're doing the dishes, whatever you're doing right now, just stop for a moment, close your eyes, and just take a deep breath. And just let yourself actually be here. Because what I'm going to share with you today isn't something that you really want to half listen to. It's something that you want to actually feel it. You want to let it land into your body. This episode is for the person who knows that they are meant for more. You know it. You've always known it. And maybe you've had some glimpses of it. Moments where everything clicked and where things were flowing and where you felt like the fullest, most alive version of yourself. And then somehow, maybe you found yourself back in that familiar rhythm of trying to just figure life out, pushing through, wondering why the gap between where you are and what you know you're capable of, why that gap's not closing. Not the way you want it to, at least. If that resonates for you, then this episode is going to land for you. Because today, I'm going to share my own experience with that very feeling and the process that's unfolded for me over the past year. Probably longer than that, actually. Something that really changed the way that I understand my own expansion and what ultimately has become the foundation of what I believe is the most important program that I've ever created. And it all started with a word. And that word is fluorescence. Fluorescence means the process of bursting into bloom. Now, I first came across that word when I was studying for a certification in human design and gene keys in my business. And from that moment, a whole journey really began. One that led me through specifically Gene Key 15, which we're going to talk about here today, and into a framework for understanding exactly where we are as human beings in our own expansion, and me specifically, as I said, in my expansion. And also to a piece of really interesting cosmic timing that I could not have planned. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So let's get into it. So I want to give you a little bit of background and some context here. So as I mentioned, I was studying for a certification program that is specifically human design and gene keys in business. Now, some of you, if you're tuning in here, excuse me, if you're attracted to a show like mine, you're probably familiar with gene keys and human design. Maybe you already are working with your profile. Maybe you've done your hologenetic profile. You might be deep into the work. And if that's you, then I think today's conversation will just be a beautiful layer of confirmation for you. For those of you who might be new to it, I want to make this really accessible because the truth is you don't need to know anything about gene keys or human design for what I'm about to share to land for you, but it'll land in a different way if you actually do have some context. So Gene Keys is a system. It was developed by a man named Richard Rudd, and it maps the spectrum of human consciousness. Richard was a student and a teacher, actually, of human design prior to developing his work with Gene Keys. Now, I've been studying human design for several years already. I think I first came across human design back in 2017. 2017, maybe it was 2018. And so I've been studying it for myself and understanding, my own energetic makeup and using it for myself and then passing on what I learned to clients. But it was when I landed into the Gene Keys work that things really, really opened up for me. And when I pursued a certification with it, because I wanted to bring it into the work that I was doing, it was something that my mentor explained that really helped me understand the value in both of these programs and why one, for me at least, feels very incomplete without the other. So human design it's the way she described it is it's the more masculine approach. It focuses on the mechanics of your energy. It tells you your type and your strategy and your authority, teaching you how to exactly how to make decisions that are in alignment with your energy and to interact with the world around you. And it relies on physical experimentation. So you really experiment as you move through your human design. Gene Keys, on the other hand, it's the more feminine side of it. And it focuses on more of the consciousness behind the mechanics. It focuses inward, teaching you how to contemplate and to be curious about the specific emotional and behavioral patterns within these keys. It relies on that contemplation and more of an emotional acceptance rather than just a behavioral strategy. Now in Gene Keys, like I said, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? The gates in human design are the same thing as the keys in Gene Keys, but what they mean are a little bit different. In Gene Keys, each of the keys, you have 64 keys, each of those exist on a spectrum of frequencies. And this is what the show is all about, right? It's called the Flourish Frequency. So when I started to really, really understand these frequencies in the Gene Keys system, suddenly it all made sense. So when I say spectrum of frequencies, so each key has a spectrum of frequency to it. You have a shadow frequency, which is all about your fear and your challenges. The shadow is going to be the low frequency expression of that key. It's going to be rooted in survival patterns. It's going to be the unconscious ways that we operate when we're not living from our full potential. And then you have the gift frequencies. The gift is what emerges when we begin to transcend the shadow. It's the natural talents and the capacities that start to come alive when we're operating from a higher frequency, when we move out of the shadow. And then you have the Siddhi, which is your highest spiritual potential. Siddhi is a Sanskrit word meaning divine gift, and it's the highest expression. It's the fullest, most luminous version of what that particular gene key represents. And it's rare. It's not a destination. It's not like you're always trying to live in the Siddhi frequency of this gene key, but it's something that becomes unlocked when you lean into your gifts, when you move out of the shadow and you move into the gift. And I think that's really important to note too, is that you can approach gene keys and look at it and say that you're in the shadow frequency and look at that like it's a problem and try and fix the problem. Or you can do what really is the alchemy of the gene key, is lean into the gift and allow it to move you out of the shadow. It alchemizes that lower frequency and allows you to express the higher frequency. So this is going to make more sense as we talk about the particular gene key, one in particular that really this show and this episode and this program that came through me is all about. Okay, so we each have a very unique set of activated keys and gates that are based on the time and the day and the location of your birth. It's our own unique individual brilliance and potential that you have available to you. Now, whether you live into that potential or not is going to be based on whether or not you're living and hiding out in your shadows or you're leaning into your gifts, right? So that potential is there for you. It's available to you. but it's up to you to actually come out of the shadows and move into the gifts. So as I was studying for my certification, I was getting to know each of these gene keys very intimately. I was looking at the ones in my own chart specifically, but also as I was doing readings and working with clients and taking a look at their unique charts, I came across keys that I didn't have access to in my own chart, at least not regular access. I'll explain that in a little bit, what that means. But I went through each of these 64 keys and did contemplation on all of them and really understanding what the shadows expressions look like and what the gift expressions and frequencies look like, and then what the city frequencies look like. And this one key, gene key 15, is the one that stopped me. It didn't stop me from moving forward. It stopped me in my tracks kind of thing. Like, as soon as I landed on it, something completely lit up inside of me. And I'll explain it to you. So this gene key is, the name of the key is an eternally flowering spring. Now, my whole business and brand has been about flourishing for the longest time. I had that name and that word and that meaning for years. I mean, going back to 2015, 2016. I used to always, when I was moving through burnout, describe it as feeling like I was dying on the vine and I just wanted to flourish. And I knew that that word flourish was something so important. I've talked about it many times here on the show. And now, after moving through all of this over the past year, I understand at an even deeper level as to why it's so important. But this key, the name of it is an eternally flowering spring, right? And it sits in a spectrum that moves from the shadow of dullness, okay? The gift of magnetism, and the city, the highest frequency, is fluorescence. And when I saw that word, I knew that it had such a deep meaning to it. And that this was a key that was going to hold so much, so much energy for me. Okay, so let's talk about what each of these expressions look like specifically. So the shadow of dullness. Now, when I say dullness, I don't mean laziness. I don't mean not working hard enough. The shadow of dullness is something that's more subtle and it's more pervasive. It's the experience of being disconnected from the vibrancy of your life. It's the experience of just going through the motions. Maybe you're producing results. Maybe you're checking boxes off. Maybe you're doing all the right things, but you feel strangely flat inside. It's like the lights are on, but something essential is dimmed. But dullness, interestingly enough, doesn't show up just in one way. It has two distinct expressions. And actually, this is worth talking about because each gene key, the shadow, can express itself in one of two ways. It will express itself either in a repressed way, or it will express itself as a reactive way. Because the shadow is really, it's fear-based, right? It's an expression of fear. So it's the primal response of reaction. You're either repressing something that you don't want to feel or experience, or you're reacting. And it's out of a dysregulated nervous system when you're in your shadows. Okay? So dullness doesn't just show up in one way. It has two distinct expressions. The first expression is that empty expression. It's the person who feels numb. It's the person who moves through their days on autopilot. And maybe who's built a life that looks good from the outside, but it feels totally hollow on the inside. It's the flatness. It's somebody who's going through the motions, right? A quality that you can't shake, even though things maybe look objectively fine. But then there's the second expression, and that's the reactive one. And this one might surprise you a little bit when you think of dullness, because this would be the person who's seeking extremes. They're doing everything they can to avoid that feeling of dullness. So they may swing between being all in and being checked out. Maybe they go hard on a goal and then pull back completely. Somebody who might have, in your business, you might have a big launch and then you disappear completely. It's the cycle between pushing yourself to the limit and then just collapsing, right? It's this boom or bust kind of feeling, all or nothing. And both of these, the flatness and the swinging, are the same shadow. They're just different expressions of it. They're expressions of being out of rhythm with your own natural expansion. Both of them are signals that somebody is living below the frequency of the gifts. So as you hear this, do any of these sound familiar for you? I know it did for me. It absolutely did for me. But here's the beauty. The gift of Gene Key 15 is magnetism. And this is where it gets really interesting. When we start to move out of the shadow of dullness and into the gift, something counterintuitive starts to happen. Because the path to magnetism isn't acceleration. It's not pushing harder or doing more and finally getting your strategy right. It's a attunement. It's actually slowing down enough to match the natural rhythm of your own expansion. I always tell my clients, sometimes you got to slow down in order to speed up. And so slowing down so you can get into that rhythm of life for yourself is what starts to open up your magnetism again. So when you do this, when you stop fighting that natural ebb and flow and you start moving with it, things will start to begin to organize around you. This is where you become magnetic. Opportunities, clarity, the right people, the right resources, they all start to flow towards you rather than being something that you have to chase. And what felt like dullness will start to begin to reveal itself actually as this fullness of life that was always there for you. And you just couldn't feel it when you were either moving too fast or too forcefully, or you were too numbed out. Okay, so that's that magnetism. And then there's the city, the highest frequency, the fluorescence. So Richard Rudd describes fluorescence as the absolute radiant and joyous expression of life's inner beauty. It makes no effort. It simply flourishes. There's my word. Of course, there's a reason I love this gene key. Fluorescence is not about something that you make happen. It's something that happens through you. It's alive, it's spontaneous, it's too wild for the mind to be able to control it or predict it or manufacture it. You cannot force fluorescence. You cannot force your own blooming, right? But you can expand your capacity to allow it to happen. And you can stop getting in the way of stopping your blooming, stopping the thing that wants to actually move through you, stopping your potential. Because when you lean into the gift, that's when you start to allow your potential to start to move through you. And this is actually what was happening for me. As I studied this and I reflected on it, and I actually started to lean into what I was contemplating with this gene key, everything started to open up. So when I first came across this key, the word fluorescence, I knew it was going to be a program for me. It was the name of a program. And initially I was trying to figure out what that program was going to be. I was trying to make it something. So this was over a year ago. And I put it on the back burner. I put it to the side because I realized the more I was trying to figure out what it was going to be, the less I was actually, I was making a program just to make a program. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. And it wasn't what this program wanted to be. What I realized is I had to go through my own experience with this gene key and my own experience with fluorescence to allow the program to actually be what it's meant to be. And that's exactly what happened. And it started kind of slowly at first, but as everything started to pick up speed, when I leaned into my own contemplation and the way I was showing up from the shadows versus my gift, I unlocked my own magnetism with it. And the fluorescence, the blooming just started happening. All of the ideas and the people and the resources and everything just started to download like crazy. I could not stop it. From the beginning of this year, January, it's been like one constant download after another, culminating into this beautiful program that I'm about to launch. Actually, I opened the doors to it yesterday. So we're gonna take a quick break here, but we're putting the link to the program in the show notes, and also a link to the Flourish Quotient quiz. I've talked about that, I think, over the last couple of months. That's one of the things that actually downloaded as my own magnetism and fluorescence began to really pick up speed. So remember, I talked before about you have to kind of slow down at first, and that's what happened. But then I slowed down in order to speed up. Everything has just sped up like crazy. So we're going to put those links into the show notes. You can check out the program if you're interested. When we come back, excuse me, I want to kind of pull into how the Gene Key has actually informed this other body of work that was coming through for me, and how it kind of just synced up and came together. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into that.
Cut the shit. Stop struggling to feel present. Stop being taken advantage of. Express how you feel and stop making choices based on what other people think. Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation podcast, is your go-to resource for combining guidance with mental health and spirituality and solving your questions about why you can't seem to catch a break and find your true happiness. And you can find more episodes at becknelson.com/podcast.
Are you struggling with unresolved emotions or recurring patterns? Tune into Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance with me, Shannon O'Flaherty, on Transformation Talk Radio. On the second Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll explore your own birth experiences and consider how they might be affecting your current life patterns to start your journey towards self-discovery and healing. For more information, visit shannonbtb.com. That's shannonbtb.com.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine Delusion Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine Delusion Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickiworldart.com.
Okay, welcome back. So, as I mentioned just before the break, I want to kind of tie some things together here from talking about the Gene Keys and specifically this Gene Key 15, which is all about fluorescence, and how the process of fluorescence allowed my own fluorescence, I should say, allowed for this whole body of work to start to really flow through me and to come out of me, instead of me trying to force it, instead of me trying to figure out what it was. So one of the key things is this framework that I've been working with. I'm calling it the Flourish Code, because it's really what's coded within us, and the way that we engage and operate in life and move with life for our own evolution, for our own expansion, for our own growth. And there are 4 paradigms, 4 ways of engaging life that determine how you experience life and the results that you get out of life. And these 4 paradigms are surviving, striving, thriving, and flourishing. Okay, so a paradigm is not just a mindset, it's a pattern, it's a way of operating, right? So let's walk through these 4 paradigms. And as I describe each one, I want you to think about yourself and which ones are resonating for you right now, where you might actually be operating. Not where you think you should be and not where you want to be, but where you actually are right now and how you're engaging life in this season. And I mentioned before the Flourish Quotient quiz. We've got the link to that in the show notes. You can actually take that quiz and it will help you identify how you're currently showing, which paradigm you're currently operating from in life, and what the levers are to pull to actually start to move into a different paradigm. So let's talk about these. The surviving paradigm. This is a paradigm that is a paradigm of contraction. It's a pattern of contraction. A person who's in surviving is operating in a state of scarcity, of time, a scarcity of energy, a scarcity of possibility. There's a numbness to potential. Numbness, i.e. dullness, right? Life feels like something that's happening to you rather than through you. When you're surviving, you might be in a small container doing what you can to just get through life. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with this. It's a real and it's a valid place to be, but it's not a place that's designed for expansion. So if you're looking to grow and expand and evolve, surviving is not the place to be, right? We have to deal with that. We have to actually work some of the levers to move out of a surviving state. The striving paradigm is the paradigm of effort. A striving person is working and they're producing and they have goals and they're moving towards them. But there's a quality of push to it, of forcing, of making things happen. Somebody who's striving is reaching and growing and creating, but it may cost them over time. I actually think a lot of high achievers are in striving mode. There's a difference between high performers and high achievers, right? High performers actually transcend past striving, but some high achievers can get stuck in striving mode. And I was in this place at a point in time, right? The thing about the striving mode is at some point, the amount of effort and force and push that you put out there, it has diminishing returns, right? Because it requires constant fuel. And there's often an isolation of the periods of intense push followed by exhaustion and pullback, the burnout that can happen, right? Does that sound familiar? I'm raising my hand here if you can't see me. I've been there. So the thriving paradigm is where magnetism starts to enter the picture, right? A thriving person is in flow. Things are working. There's momentum. There's a self-led quality to how you move through life and business. You've built capacity and you're operating from it, right? But there's still more. Thriving is a great place to be, but there is still more past that. There's that state of flourishing. This is where fluorescence lives, right? This is the paradigm where your expansion stops being something that you create. It just starts to be something that's moving through you, where you're living it. And where the gap between who you are and what you're capable of, it starts to close because you're living into that potential, right? So I want you to see where Gene Key 15 actually maps to this. And I didn't realize it at first. It actually wasn't something I realized until I was literally last week putting together the notes for this podcast episode. And I started to realize that surviving and striving are both expressions of dullness. Surviving is the flat, numb, contracted expression. It's the emptied out version of the shadow. And then striving is the reactive expression, where you seek extremes. It's the push-pull, the boom and the bust. They're not opposites. They're two faces of the same shadow. And thriving is magnetism. It's the gift coming online. It's things flowing, it's life organizing, and it's the sense of being in the right place at the right time. And then flourishing is fluorescence. It's the Siddhic frequency, the highest expression. It's radiant, it's inevitable bloom. It's not something that you make happen, it's something that happens through you. So Gene Key 15 actually, quite literally, is the Flourish Code. And I didn't actually even realize it as all of that was downloading through me. Like I said, it wasn't actually until I started to put together the notes here and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's another piece of the puzzle. That's what the last 4 or 5 months have been like for me. Every week, it's like different puzzle pieces have been fitting into place, downloading and fitting into place. And that's what's gone into creating this program that I'm launching called Fluorescence. Right? So I want to use a metaphor here to help kind of also describe this, because this is the other piece that I keep seeing these pictures when I'm using the metaphor. It's like I literally have these visuals in mind as the work was downloading. Okay, so I want you to think of a plant. Well, of course, that makes sense with flourishing, right? But I want you to think of a plant. Imagine a plant, and actually, let's imagine a seed that's still in the packet. A seed that's full of potential, but there's nothing activated yet. That's the pre-expansion. Life hasn't asked anything of the seed yet. Now imagine that seedling potted in a small container, and it's growing and it's doing what it can within the constraints of its environment. It's surviving, right? Nothing's good, nothing's bad. It's just surviving. Imagine the plant that is coming up through the concrete, right? You see those out there, right? The ones that are pushing through the concrete. Those are the ones that are actually fighting to survive, right? So it's an expression of surviving, but it's more of like it's fighting to survive, and it's going to push and do things the hard way. That's also an expression of surviving. And it may bend over into striving a little bit too, right? Because maybe it does push through and it does make it. But without the right environment around it, how long does it last? I also want you to think of striving as like a plant that is, let's say it's a plant that's in a pot and it starts to grow. Like initially there's this great growth out of it because it's in the right size pot for it. But as it starts to grow and grow more, it starts to outgrow the pot. And what happens is it breaks the pot. That would be an example of burnout, right? Initially, everything's great because you're making it happen. You're pushing and you're engaged initially, and maybe everything's great at first, but then you start to outgrow your pot and you literally break it, or you break your body in the process. Or the other thing that happens is you shrink back to fit the pot. How many times do we see that? Where people shrink their greatness. They become invisible just to fit the pot that they're in because it's easier. Now, imagine taking that plant and transplanting it into an open field. That plant that was starting to outgrow the pot. You transplant it. You put it into a vast field where it has room to grow. The constraint is gone, and the roots of this plant can go as deep as they need to go. And there's community around the plant. There's other plants, there's other life. Things that were hard suddenly become easy. And there's flow. That's your thriving. And then flourishing is this vast field that's in full bloom. all of the plants have burst into bloom, fluorescence, right? There's not one plant straining towards something. It's an entire ecosystem. It's a whole field that's alive and radiant. And each element is amplifying the others. Each is feeding into the system, but also being fed by the system. There's a quantum amplification here. And what I want you to picture in that scenario, if you can see this in your head, if you can see that beautiful flourishing field of flowers, vibrant and alive and colorful and self-sustaining, can you also, if you look closely in your imagination, can you see the bees and the butterflies that are pollinating? They're taking the seeds and they're spreading them far and wide. That's the distinguishing factor between flourishing and thriving. In thriving, you're starting to get into that flow with life. You're starting to get into it, and things that you're allowing. You've expanded your capacity, so you're allowing life to start to move through you. But in flourishing, it's an entire ecosystem, and it is self-sustaining and feeding each other. And your impact is being carried further and farther without you having to put in any additional work. So those bees and those butterflies are like people, if you're in business, people referring you to other people, right? It's your mission. Maybe it's PR that's getting picked up for you. Maybe it's resources that are showing up that you didn't even ask for, and they're just showing up because now you've got others who are actually helping you expand. And you're not even having to do it through effort. And why is it happening is because you're also doing the same thing for other people. You're also feeding the ecosystem. It's not just about you. So that's what flourishing is all about. And that's actually what the Fluorescence program is designed to do. I want to talk about it here because as I went through this entire experience myself, and the downloads all started to happen, and then people started to refer me again. And I say again because I can see back like 5 years ago where I had this period of flourishing, where I can see where I was fully in it at that time. And then I plateaued, meaning I got comfortable. My business didn't go backwards, but it was just comfortable where it was at, and it wasn't growing again. And I was okay with it for the longest time until I had that little nudge again. That nudge that said, I want to make a bigger impact. I want to reach more people. And I knew it was time for growth again. And I had to look and see, had I fallen back into striving? Was I surviving? Was I thriving? Where was I? And I realized in the process that my first instinct, when I thought of, okay, I'm ready to grow again, I'm ready for that next level of growth, my first instinct was to go back to an old pattern of behavior, that old paradigm of, I have to figure it out. And again, when the word fluorescence came to me over a year ago, and I knew it was going to be a program, that was my first pattern, was to go back into, okay, I have to figure out what this is. But I didn't actually have to do that. I just thought I had to because that was the pattern that was familiar for me for a long, long period of time. So the beauty of it is, and again, what fluorescence is about is it takes you through what paradigm are you in, what paradigm are you operating from, and how do you move? Whether you are in surviving or you're in striving, how do we move you out of those paradigms and into the higher paradigms where you actually are starting to engage life again as thriving to be able to unleash your own fluorescence and your own flourishing? Because that marries up exactly with the Gene Keys, the way the Gene Keys work, right? Again, striving and surviving are going to be expressions of shadow. And how do we actually move into our gifts and allow for the fluorescence? I can tell you, having experienced it, it is the most exhilarating process. When it happens, you feel so lit up and so alive and so ready to take on the world. And that's exactly what I want people to experience. that's exactly what this program is designed for and what it's all about, is to show you how you do that, to show you how you actually expand your ability to allow that to happen in your life. So we're going to take another short break here. When we come back, I want to share something interesting that happened around the timing of this program. I'll tell you a little bit more about the program and specifically, but also another really interesting cosmic timing with the program that I also did not plan for. And I think it's a powerful illustration of everything that we've talked about here today, and an example of what happens when you actually are in the the energy of fluorescence. So before we get there, fluorescence, again, I just opened the doors to it yesterday. Enrollment is going to be through May 30th. We begin June 2nd. The link to the sales page is in the show notes if you want to check it out. And there's also a link then to the Flourish Quotient quiz. You can take that quiz and it'll help you identify where you're at. But I'm going to guess that probably in listening to me describe the different paradigms, you probably know where you've been operating. So wherever you are, it's okay. It's your starting point. And there are going to be times when you move backwards, just like I did a little bit. It's fluid. It's the awareness and understanding how it works that allows you to go to another level again. Okay? So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into that.
Cut the shit. Stop struggling to feel present. Stop being taken advantage of. Express how you feel and stop making choices based on what other people think. Intuition Unleashed, a Revolution in Personal Liberation podcast, is your go-to resource for combining guidance with mental health and spirituality and solving your questions about why you can't seem to catch a break and find your true happiness. And you can find more episodes at becknelson.com/podcast.
Are you struggling with unresolved emotions or recurring patterns? Tune into Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance with me, Shannon O'Flaherty, on Transformation Talk Radio. On the second Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll explore your own birth experiences and consider how they might be affecting your current life patterns to start your journey towards self-discovery and healing. For more information, visit shannonbtb.com. That's shannonbtb.com.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine Delusion Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine Delusion Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickiworldart.com.
Okay, welcome back. So I want to come back to Gene Key 15 one more time here. That key that we've been talking about here today, the one that has the city expression of fluorescence. Because there's one other piece to this that I hadn't talked about yet here, that's this cosmic timing. And this is a part that I didn't plan, that I couldn't have planned if I wanted to. Well, I guess I could have, but I didn't plan it. And this, more than anything else, convinced me that this program is exactly what it's meant to be. I mentioned before in Gene Keys and Human Design that you have these keys and these gates that you have access to. Like we each have our unique profile. So we have keys and gates that are unique to us. And it's based on your birth date and where you were born and your birth time. I actually don't have this gene key as part of my hologenetic profile. It's actually not one of my gene keys. I kind of wish it was, but it's not. But the interesting thing is that when I was studying it last year and I was contemplating it, it happened to be the week where the sun was transiting this particular key. So what happens with each of the keys is the sun, as it's moving, is transiting a different key for a period of a few days every year. And it's during that time that the energy intensifies, not just for individuals who have it in their chart, but it's globally. Everybody's got like access to that energy. And it's like a pulse. It's an amplification of everything that G key represents. And it's available to everybody, whether you have that particular key activated in your chart or not. So when I looked back on it, it happened to be when I was doing part of my certification exam, and this particular gene key was coming up. It happened to be that week. I didn't realize it until I was looking back on it. And now the solar transit of gene key 15 in 2026 is going to be falling June 19th through June 24th. And that's going to be the 3rd to 4th week of the program. So it's the perfect timing of this program for it to actually be running, right? During the solar transit of Gene Key 15, there's going to be this collective activation around breaking free from the routines and the patterns that keep you numb and stuck, those patterns of dullness. There's a heightened synchronicity and magnetic draw, that energy of magnetism, being in the right place at the right time with people and opportunities and finding each other. And there's a heart opening and an organic expansion of what we can receive and express. There's dullness breaking down, there's magnetism intensifying, and there's fluorescence in the field. That's what's going to happen during the program. So let me tell you just a little bit about the program. As I mentioned before, it starts June 2nd, and it's going to be a 5-week, live experience. It's going to include deep identity work and nervous system recalibration. One of the things that's really important, if you want to move out of surviving or striving, is we've got to do identity work and we have to do some nervous system work. We are working on expanding capacity. When you are in striving mode, surviving or striving, capacity is an issue, right? When you're in surviving, it's like you can't handle anything else because you're just trying to survive. When you're in striving, there's a lot of control, right? So to be able to move out of striving and into thriving, where you're actually in that state of through me, meaning there's a consciousness of through me. So you're not, let me put it this way, in the surviving mode, the consciousness is very much to me. Like life is happening to me, okay? And I don't have power, I don't have control if I'm in surviving mode. In striving mode, you're in the by me consciousness. You're not powerless and you're not in that victim to me energy or to me consciousness, but you're in that consciousness of I can make things happen. So it's a by me and it's force. To move into thriving, you move into through me consciousness, where you allow life to happen through you, but you also work through others, which requires you to be able to give up control, right? If you're going to work through others and you're going to allow life to move through you, you have to be able to give up control because you can't control everything. And that can be scary for a lot of people. That's why surviving and striving are both fear-based, right? Because they require more control. And so we have to do that nervous system work where we work on the capacity and expanding your capacity, both inner capacity and outer capacity. So what do I mean by that is inner capacity is the nervous system. right? If you can't handle more, you can't have more. So the natural expression of more is of evolution and growth is more, right? If you can't handle more, you can't have it. And outer capacity is hiring additional people. It's the additional team. It's the additional tools or support that you bring in, right? So both of those are really important in order to expand your capacity. When you have more people to do the work, you can have more because you can delegate out. You're not trying to do it all on your own anymore. Now, many people will immediately go to expanding outer capacity. So they'll hire more people, or they'll get additional support or additional tools. But if you don't do the inner capacity work, then all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure, because you can hire more people, but you'll end up overwhelmed if you can't work on giving up the control to it. So that's really important, and that's something that we're really going to focus a lot on in the program, is helping you develop both the identity, the version of you that actually is thriving, the version of you that actually is in flourishing mode and fluorescence. And in order to do that, it's not just the identity, but it's also working on the nervous system to allow for that expansion to happen. And then we look at the environment also, right? The environment that you're placing yourself in. So in striving and surviving mode, surviving, you're usually at the mercy of your environment, right? It is what it is, and you're just at the mercy of it. In striving mode, you may have put yourself into an environment that you're comfortable with, but in thriving and flourishing, you actually you shift and you consciously put yourself into an environment that's going to stretch you and grow you. That can be a little bit uncomfortable at first until it becomes comfortable. So once again, that's where we got to work with the nervous system so that you can be comfortable being uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable. So that's what's going on in the container. And like I said, between the third and the fourth week is when the gene key of fluorescence is actually active. And we'll all be able to tap into this energy and really tap into it and see it magnify for us as individuals. Now, one additional thing that I'm doing with this program that is really important is the bonus that I've added to it is a month additional. So it's a 5-week program, but then there's going to be an additional month that is access into the Flourish Field, which is my membership. And I'm doing that very intentionally and very purposely because the 3 sessions that happen in the Flourish Field every month are the very things that help you take all of this expansion and integrate it, to not just momentarily embody it, but to allow it to become a new way of being so that you can expand and not pull yourself back again. So we do a monthly forecast, focus, and flow session, which is a planning session that's all about providing additional masculine energy and support and structure for all that creative energy that wants to flow through you and from you. And then we also have a meta mastery session, where we really dive deeper into the metaphysical concepts that actually support the growth and expansion. This entire process that I've described here today, my own experience with moving through fluorescence and how it actually has birthed fluorescence, and the experiencing of it is very meta, right? It's fluorescence through fluorescence. So it's the perfect example of what meta looks like. It's moving into the metaphysical to allow for something really beautiful to be birthed through you. And then the final session is called Somatic Magic, and that is a breathwork journey. And I do those every single month inside of the membership. And I do it because it's so important to continuing to expand your capacity. Breathwork is something that keeps your nervous system regulated when you use it very intentionally, very specifically, and consistently. Because let's face it, life, if we look to it on the outside, there's a lot of craziness in the world these days. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. And if you are in surviving mode or striving mode, you're either, again, at the mercy of all the craziness out there, and you're going to be just reacting, or you're going to be repressing your brilliance and your ability to actually show up in this world and make a difference in this world, right? So one of those two things are going to happen. You're going to be repressed, and you're going to be in that dullness expression where you feel like you don't have anything to contribute, or who am I to be able to make a difference? That's not you in your brilliance. That's you in survivor mode or striver mode, where you're out there trying to force and push and fix this crazy world that we're in. And that is going to be exhausting. The world needs more people in thriving and flourishing, right? People who are actually showing up in their fullest expression, whatever that is for you. People who are showing up in their brilliance, in their fullest potential, and in their most powerful version of themselves. That's what this world needs. That's what's going to create the ecosystem that actually is self-sustaining and feeding itself, instead of this world that seems to be on a downward spiral in many cases. It may seem that way, but I guarantee you right now, what's happening in our world is that something bigger and better is about to emerge from it. And the more of us that can actually show up in our greatest expression, the more powerful and the faster that will happen. So I want to invite you, if you're listening to this episode here today, if this has been, triggering something for you, if it's resonating for you, check out the link, check out the sales page, see if this is something that is calling you forward, and come join me in Fluorescence. I would love to support you and have you experience what I have experienced over the last year. I know that it is available for each and every one of us, and it's going to look different for each of us. The things that are going to come through you are going to be different than the things that came through for me, but it's still going to come through. It's you in your fluorescence. So I want to close today with something that I want you to hear. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not missing something that everybody else seems to have figured out. But you may have been interrupting your own fluorescence. And if you have, just know that the interruption isn't a flaw, and it's not evidence of unworthiness or a lack of readiness. It's just a signal. It's a beautiful, honest signal that your capacity is ready to expand, that what's wanting to come through you is bigger than the container that you've been holding it in, and that it's time. So where in your life can you feel the difference between what you're touching occasionally in your best moments, your most aligned days, your brightest glimpses of who you're becoming, and what you want to actually live in? That's the gap. And that gap isn't failure. That gap is your fluorescence calling you. You don't have to figure out how to close it alone. Fluorescence is open. The link is in the show notes. And I hope to see you inside. This is the Flourish Frequency, so we're here to activate your energy and amplify your life, and I hope you feel amplified today. Until next time, keep blooming. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larson. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your Flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsonCoaching.com. That's BethLarsonCoaching.com, Larson with an E.